support must be with Jongy, who's having a breakthrough to some mental health issues.
Yeah, he's had a tough time, Jongy, over the last few years with all the physical injury that he's had to confront and been in rehab for such a long time. And the unfortunate thing is that he's in our best 22. He'd had a great pre-season, then he went down with that hamstring. So, he's struggling a bit, and so all we can do is support him and help him. The great thing is he's going to be here and training and keeping himself physically fit, and we'll all support him. But we're hopeful that he's still got a bright future.
We saw Matthew Broadbent in Port Adelaide yesterday, another player that's having a break. Does it just further highlight the need for a critical action response from the league? Critical is obviously an extreme adjective, and it's just become more prevalent, hasn't it? And the declaration by a player or a handful of players that they're really struggling is probably hit us all between the eyes. And whereas maybe historically, definitely historically, it's always been there, but players haven't found that they're in the right environments to speak up, or they didn't have the right support around them to do that, and bowed out of the game. Unfortunately, I think it comes up in retrospect too often these days. So it's probably just understanding it even more. And I think the point we've got to get to is when players are having these clinically diagnosed challenges, that we can still get them to the point where they can still play the game at this level. And that's the biggest unknown, because with physical injury, there's a finite sort of a timeline in return. With mental health, there isn't, and we found that with Boydie, that you haven't actually got an end point, and that's the most disconcerting thing in the whole equation. So critical, yeah, to a degree. It's just more ensuring that we understand what we can do to we don't want to get to the point where players aren't getting an opportunity because they've got these challenges before they get drafted. Because I'm pretty sure that 17 and 18-year-olds who have gone through the pathways and already know that it's going to be tough for them, that declaration is not going to happen because they want their opportunity. So it's just making sure that we can manage it and still have players with these challenges become very, very good players at AFL level. If you don't mind me asking, what stage are you brought into the discussions, or how early on are you made aware of, for example, Jongy's situation?
Oh, well, Jongy's been quite resilient, over a significant period of time, and sometimes it just creeps up and becomes a bit too much. Whether there's something inherent there that a player's always had, then none of us are really aware of that until it comes to a head. So, the timing of me being communicated with is pretty much in line with when our medical staff know. The detail, though, and that's there is that privileged conversation between players and medical practitioners that needs to be coveted and protected. So quite often you don't know the actual detail, and I'm comfortable with that. I'm just here to help and support our players and our environment. And the main thing too is when it happens with one or two players in your program for whatever reason, then it's making sure that your whole playing group are supported, because they're the ones who have been picking up the pieces for a while, and they're the ones who are dealing with their own challenges and then someone else's. So it's making sure that all of our people, and not just our players, our staff who manage and drive our program are supported with their own, because they're going through their own challenges in their own space, because none of us are here again for an indefinite period. We're here to perform at the highest level as often as we can. So that can be a challenge for staff as well.
Jack Stephen and I think Matt Jack Dore, obviously the other ones this year. But how many more do you think in the system probably haven't made it public yet that they're going through some issues? And do you think there might be
a handful more in your system that may be dealing with issues that you perhaps don't know about?
Oh, potentially, Corey. I mean, but I think the thing that the players are trying to come to grips with is that it can be career-ending, and that's the unfortunate thing. When the challenges and the pressures of the game, and probably some of the external scrutiny at times, and the expectation of fans, and that's what we try and do internally, is provide that buffer of support that, if things don't go well, it's okay. We'll do our best to get it right the next week. It's not, there's no significant emotion in it other than just, support and care within your organisation. I think that's really changed. From a part-time perspective years ago, when players had their own vocations or their jobs and then they went and played footy at this level before it went full-time, it was easier to balance up your priorities and have something to fall back on. Because it's more all in now in a full-time environment, then it can be even more confronting for the individual. So we spend a lot of our time just making sure our welfare framework and people, that's led by Brent Prismal, is watertight and ties in well with our medical aspects. So, but yeah, as your original question, potentially there's a hell of a lot more, but I think there'll still be some reluctance from players because they probably understand that it might be something that doesn't lend itself to helping them play for a long time. And that's getting back to what I said earlier, how, as far as education goes, and us being equipped to support a player and take them into the next level of their journey, who've got these challenges, how do we do that the best way possible? And we're definitely not there yet.
In terms of tomorrow's game, is the side ready, and what have you guys been working on? Anything in particular?
Ready, yeah. We're ready every week, and obviously we continue to work on the things that we know that helps us win games. I mean, there's no uncertainty or confusion in any of that, other than just playing better footy for longer periods and against every team in the competition. So after a break, after the bye, we've come back refreshed and we'll be ready for a game on Saturday night.
They're a different beast, the Blues, Bevo, now, but they've had that win and they've broken the shackles there a bit.
Yeah, well, they're a similar make-up to when we played them last time. Last time we played them, they had a number of players come into the team, and I think Cruiser played his first game back, and that's the unfortunate thing for Bolts. In post that game, they started to lose Simpson, and I think Cripps got hurt, and then Cruiser went out of the side, and Liam Jones was probably their best defender against us last time, went out of the side with concussion, and so their team became a little bit imbalanced during the recent times. I'm sure that if they had been able to keep that team together for a little bit longer and have that continuity, that the Bolts would still be coaching them. It's just unfortunate that happened and they were destabilised. But now it seems like they've got that team back together, and Murphy comes back in. I thought Silvani played pretty well against us last time, and he goes out. So we'll be expecting, that the strengths that we saw in their game when we played them last will be prevalent again on Saturday night. We'll do our best to combat that and bring out our best.
And no doubt they're walking a bit taller this week after the win. Do you sort of have to steel your players for that sort of what to expect from the Blues?
Oh, from that point of view, it's no different in that we need to focus on our own energies and strengths and empower our players to play at our best. Yeah, they were reasonably impressive last week against Brisbane, and we know Brisbane are a good side. So it just highlights that, yes, there's probably been 2 or 3 weeks where they haven't been overly pleased with their overall performance, but every other game they've been extremely competitive. They've been in the games, and they just haven't won as many as they would have liked, and probably similar to us. So there's no way we'll underestimate them, but we'll need to go to the well on what our strengths and abilities are.
Dale Morris, how far away is he?
He's not far away. We anticipated he'd almost be right this week, and back in almost full training. He's he's pretty good, but there's a few sort of domsy, fatiguey things going on. We're hoping that in a couple of weeks he'll be right to play. But as you've probably seen, he's looking strong, and hopefully we'll get him back in in a couple of weeks' time.
And I don't know if you watched the footy last night, but did you see that interaction between Sydney Stack and Eddie Betts, and what did you make of it?
I must admit, it's been we've had a lot on this week, and I watched the first half, and I missed that. So I'll have to catch it later on. Yeah.
Bevo, I think I've heard some suggestions that this might be a line in the sand game for you. Would you sort of echo that sort of sentiment?
Oh no, definitely not a line in the sand game. I mean, we've been pretty boring for a long time, about week to week, and on our journey on our sort of path to being a challenger again, we keep talking about how we can beat anyone. We still feel like we can. So it doesn't matter whether it's Carlton or whether it's Collingwood the next week. We'll go into the game with the same mindset and attitude that we're a big chance. It doesn't, ladder positions and all that doesn't matter to us. We're just trying to improve every week, and we've seen some really positive signs from a number of players who are trying to establish themselves in the game with our core of experience, who we're hoping can lift us over the line when games are tight. We're not quite there yet. And so as the weeks tick by, we're hoping in the back end of the year that in those tight games that we can win the day more often, and there'll be a few of them, and Saturday night could be one of them. So we'll prepare for that.
Great news for you guys with Libba. I guess the side's now set to Caleb Daniel and Josh Dunkley. How are those two tracking along?
Yeah, from all reports, talking to Sam Power, our list manager, those talks with the boys' managers have been productive. We're hopeful that it won't take too much longer. Yeah, great news with Tom. He's worked hard to get himself back, and to sign for a couple of years is fantastic for us, and for him as well, and provide some security and some continuity in his thought that he's at the club that he loves, and as he mentioned, playing with his mates and the boys who he's extremely loyal to. So that's fantastic.
Just on Libby, he was one who signed pretty late, I think it's fair to say, last year in the one-year deal. Have you seen what you wanted to see from him after it was a pretty tough period, I suppose? The second knee rego is never easy for anyone. Yeah,
that's right. And Libba's probably had some really big challenges, the two knee recos, and even post some success, we all came back and he probably wasn't where he wanted to be as far as his productivity went through those periods. So he's learned a lot about himself. The thing about Tom is his devotion to the footy club has never been questioned, and as you know, I mean, I think all neutral supporters are intrigued and have a bit of a soft spot for Libba because of the character he is, and you can imagine how we feel about him. I mean, he's much loved here, and he's just a significant part of our culture more than anything. So there's no doubt that we asked him to jump through a few hoops last year before he signed a new contract, and he was prepared to do that, and it's to his credit that he's been able to perform at the level he has this year and reinstate himself in the game and earn himself a new contract. So it's brilliant for him and the club.
In the past couple of years?
He may have. It's that old adage, you can't choose whether or not you grow old, but you can choose whether or not you grow up. And Libba's never going to make that total choice to grow up, I wouldn't have thought. But he's a beauty, and that youthful energy drives an AFL footy club a lot of the time, and he was such a significant reason for our success in recent history, and we're hoping he'll be a significant reason in our future success.